Alrighty. The fingers of the backstreets are huge syndicates with power and influence rivaling wings. Each of them take after the finger of their namesake, with odd bits and pieces tied to a finger's creed. The thumb prioritizes authority, class and respect above everything else. They have such a hard-on for it that they have a maddening hierarchy conversion system to compare their ranks within the thumb against that of another corporation, syndicate, or even fixer grade. Somehow this has to do with thumbs enabling us to climb the ladder, tool use, and all that. Anyhow, the index, on the other hand, is fantastic for giving direction. They do so in a cult-like manner through their prescripts and blind faith in them. The perfect finger for it, I suppose. The middle is fantastic for flipping the bird at people while also being sandwiched between all the other fingers. They're a bunch of frat bros and sisters to the extreme that can more or less be summed up as apes together strong. They're also really petty and hold grudges like no other. Beyond there is the ring, the finger that is allowed to be accessorized the most, at least most socially acceptable to accessorize. Anyhow, not to say anything on the ring's own artworks. They're a bunch of murderous artists that revel in art one would otherwise not consider engaging in. As for the last one, it's the pinky. Not much is known about the pinky. It is the potential finger that most people wouldn't think about using all too much. Allegedly, they're among the strongest, member to member. That is all. Thank you for tuning in to another one of these lore videos. Subscribe if you enjoyed and would like to see more in the future. You can further support for as little as $1 over on Patreon. Once again, thank you for using me as second monitor content. Appreciate it. Okay, fine. The pinky is the smallest finger of the backstreets. The pinky finger itself is your hidden best friend. It accounts for a ridiculous amount of your grip strength, stability, and hand dexterity. I can speak on this firsthand since my previous occupation was as a casino dealer, wherein your pinky is surprisingly abused a ridiculous amount for needlessly dexterous tasks. It acts as an anchor for a lot of chip work, and when you first train to be a dealer, a certain tendon and muscle will start burning like a bitch due to the lack of never needing to use it up until that point. Try picking up an object with just your pinky and thumb. That much should be easy for most people. Now do it with your index and pinky. The screaming will start shortly. Same with any other finger in combination with your pinky. The pain will mainly jolt down the side of your hand closest to your pinky. Back to what we know about this mysterious organization. With what we have been privy to, it can be assumed that there are only around 108 or less in number at any one time, due to being based on the 108 heroes or demons, depending on how you look at it, from the Chinese classic The Water Margin. These 108 seats are further split into 72 earthly and 36 heavenly stars or spirits, most of which being tied to major constellations in the northern sky observable over China. In the original work, we follow 108 bandits that attempt to overthrow the government and are actually pretty close to successful in doing so, beating out the Imperial army and thus getting themselves a pardon from the Emperor, who then proceeds to recruit them as a special unit. They go on various campaigns that result in about 2/3 of them dying and the organization's eventual dissolution. Several return home to high government positions, others go to live their lives as commoners, and well, that's that really. A Chinese epic with way too many characters. Returning back to Project Moon, the 108 seats of the pinky can either be occupied or vacant at any given time, meaning they are likely even lower in number. Despite this, they have the power to rival a wing, and have waged wars in past, as per Ruiner, with their scuffle against the ring in the outskirts. While it sounds minor, this is a war between fingers after all, those that rival the wings in power. This does in fact paint a similar picture to the Water Margin, though if I had to hazard a guess, the pinky may be contracted out by the head itself, if only due to the events of the Water Margin. It could just be the head's quiet attempt at posting agents around, but that's all speculation based on external media. It would connect a lot of dots though, as to why a good chunk of them can identify each other. Anyhow, the pinky are a bunch of omnipresent, yet unknown to each other individuals that only really come together as an organization when certain circumstances are met. Essentially, they are a bunch of wandering aura farmers that are loosely beholden to one another. In the original, this was the 108 demon spirits that inhabited a bunch of fellas from all walks of life, that eventually culminated into the bandit force that overthrew the government. Here, it seems to be relic holders or fellas of uncanny ability. All of this, however, doesn't prevent them from coming at odds with each other. In fact, we see a few of them fight each other throughout the course of Limbus Company's main story. So how the bloody hell does one join the Pinky exactly? Well, that much is rather complicated. We've only had a single instance on screen of a Pinky member being inducted. Even then, it feels a little arbitrary and a potential exception to the norm. This being the reseating of the Dihui star. A while after Shiromi gets pierced through by Roshu, Arya comes out of hiding. Rian catches her at that moment, convincing her to take up her grandmother's mantle, thus becoming the Dihui star. Putting 2 and 2 together, and likely getting 5, we can assume that the title is either bestowed to an individual after the passing of the previous seat holder, or that it realistically just sits with whomever wields the weapon or relic tied to the star. Problem with either assumption is that the members aren't all shown wielding relics or blades, lessening the credibility behind this. Besides that, all of them know to keep their identities a secret, though everyone seems to know each other anyway, and most of the bloody Pinky members we see get unmasked or named by their star real quick. See either Zelu or Kongchu or Lehang. Heck, even Malphor's Uptie's story. It feels like the members are a bit of an open secret within certain circles. Within the Pinky itself, we aren't privy to any sort of hierarchy. While the 108 bandits of the water margin followed some leaders and officers, as well as a numbered ranking, they were largely an independently operating force, at least until their tenure under the Emperor. Plus, it may be likely that there isn't any true hierarchy here at all outside of the numbered ranks, and perhaps they're only beholden to a single leader if one even exists. After all, even the original band in the water margin changed hands a few times. Regardless of how little we know and how much I need to speculate, let's get to the more concrete details. Let's talk on the members that we know of. Kongchu, the Tiangang star, Jade Quillen, original fate in the water margin, assassinated. One of the few survivors of the Kong family massacre. He becomes something of a wanderer following the Bird Up incident and observes H-Corp quietly from the outside before making his return. Sometime in between said Bird Up incident and his return, it can be speculated that he joined up with the Pinky. Anyhow, throughout Nocturnal Sweeping, he is something of a quiet puppet master, essentially testing the sinners in tossing Shi Yihua at them. Past there in Canto 8, he acts as an initial antagonist, a rival in the family hierarchy evaluations, being quite the force of his own throughout. Notably, during the first test, he brings survivors of the library with him, while for the second, he fights tooth and nail to secure first place early, and functionally keeps it all the way until the sinners come face to face with him. When words are no longer enough though, when Honger's words ring hollow for a time, we are forced to fight him. After a grueling battle between him and the sinners that he likely would have won if it weren't for Honger's eventual true feelings, he hands over the coins that would have otherwise won him the seat of family hierarch. He comes back during the victory banquet to warn of the potential insurrection happening within H-Corp and requests for their aid in ensuring Shi Chun ascends as hierarch, after which he splits from the party temporarily. When we're faced off against Lehang and begin losing badly, he arrives, stepping in to hold him off while we go about aiding Shi Chun. Once we return from said incidents, the fight is still ongoing between the two Pinky members. Lehang begs for a way out and is offered one. A few Hmong rings later, and he is thus pasted across the temple grounds. Beyond there, he returns in the aftermath to elaborate upon the Pinky and declare that he must depart for Mount Liang, the same such Mount Liang where the grand assembly of the 108 bandits occurred in the water margin. At least that's the assumption. Alright, it's worth mentioning that this man has Shin, can formulate Hmong, and has bloody ego. Man is already a wild force of his own. Zelu, the Changju star. Changju? How the fuck do you say star? Chan? Changju star. Unrestrained. Original fate in the water margin, dead. Part of Kongchu's party, we've gone over her in the Heisho video prior, so I'll keep it brief. She starts at odds with the sinners, becomes their ally towards the end of Canto 8, and actively helps them out due to her lord's orders in spring cultivation. Otherwise, she is a Heisho of the Mao branch, an adept at that, capable of using Shin. Digong, speculated to be the Shanqi star, resourceful star. Original fate in the water margin, suicide. Another member of Kongchu's party, she is the cunning strategist sort. Much like her supposed star, she has a strong way with words and is seen flipping multiple situations in her side's favor through the clever use of them. That said, her part is in accompanying Kongchu and strategizing for him. She appears first in Nocturnal Sweeping, opening communications with the sinners before recurring throughout the Canto's proceedings. Her main role beyond lies in spring cultivation, wherein she is one of the leading forces behind Shi Chun's education, at least in the formation of its foundation. Aside from that, she's saddled with a mountain of paperwork. When Shi Chun is inevitably kidnapped, she is one of the first to react and send the sinners in to assist. Lehang, the Tian Tui star, Winged Tiger. Original fate in the water margin, dead. Man is an intimidating uncle figure that is a capo of the Thumb and one of the 10 Blades of the East. Scary fellow that utilizes a gunblade fashioned into a podao with exhaust pipes for propellants. Anyhow, like any member of the Thumb, he's a stickler for authority, class, and respect. He shows up during the family hierarchy evaluation and causes a scene with Roshu, leaving us crumbs for Kanto 9's events. Beyond there, he is one of the main antagonists of Part 3 of Kanto 8, wherein he holds off a bridge against the sinners attempting to make it to Tiankan Temple. We lose that fight, even with Dante's Durante abilities pulling a ridiculous amount of weight. Anyhow, Kongchu tags in, and they fight for a ridiculous amount of time until the sinners return. He gets pasted by a bunch of Mung rings from the man, and surprisingly, that's not the last we see of him. Lots of jokes and memes have been made about him functionally haunting the narrative, to which he eventually does during Kanto 9, showing up in Roshu's memories, notably forcing her to use the Arayashiki and erasing some of her memories, plus placing a lock on the Arayashiki's use by the House of Spiders. If anything, he's responsible for the lock and potentially saving more of Roshu's memories, I suppose. Well, not anymore. Anyhow, as one of the 10 Blades of the East, he is exceedingly skilled, able to fight off the sinners even when brought down to their power level. He also casually beats up Wei and a whole bunch of Shichun's followers, all but one-shots Zelu when offered a free hit, and of course fights toe-to-toe with Kongchu. That said, he can also manifest Shin and Mung, although he still seems to have been experimenting with it. To add on top of all of that, he's my punching dummy of choice whenever a new ID comes out. If the ID can take on Lehang successfully, it can take on virtually any boss fight reasonably. Thus, we move on to the House of Spiders. Ren, the apprentice and would-be inheritor of the Dihui Star. He's a boorish individual that plays an exceedingly minor role in Kanto 9. Considering he hasn't inherited a star, he could hardly be called a member of the Pinky. That said, the man studied the blade, and if Sinclair's Uptie story is anything to go by, mainly focused on studying the blade. There's an amazing meme animation of this out there, and it is just this. Anyhow, he's one of the first members of the House of Spiders we run into, past Lucio and Valencina. We come against him and Albina in the Golden Bow's housing, and later on in the House of Spiders, where he directs us through the corridor of the Pinky. Beyond there, he essentially throws himself at Mugu Roshu and gets casually erased from existence, concept incinerator style, while Dante will eventually bring him back up in twining threads. As with anything incinerated at the conceptual level, no one can really place him despite Dante's insistence. As far as his capabilities, well, he kinda just seems pretty good with a sword, not all too notable aside. Roshu, the Qiansha star, so to speak. Well, the Arayashiki's wielder is supposed to be the Qiansha star, though it somehow doesn't grant her the Pinky's membership. It's mildly maddening. The original title being Black Whirlwind, original fate in the water margin is being poisoned. Roshu, go read the entirety of Limbus' story. He is far beyond the scope of this video. Chiromi, the Dihui Star, 10 feet of blue, original fate in the water margin, dead. The first of the named earthly stars we get shown in Limbus. These fellas are ranked lower than the heavenly stars in the original water margin. Anyhow, as with the rest of the House of Spiders, we can more or less posit her as a disgraced member of the Pinky in some way or another, following suits with all the other unfortunate members down on their luck. Since the fate of the House of Spiders was to essentially erase itself and leave behind only the perfected Arayashiki, she was a means to an end. She is Roshu's biological mother and raised her rather abusively. In past, she trained Roshu in a variety of matters, swordplay chief among them. Otherwise, a whole bunch of harsh lessons, so it seems. One of those being the use of the spiral on Saru. She tries to do her all to ensure that Roshu doesn't end up like her, but ultimately is unable to stop her from resembling her in a rather sick and cruel way. Anyhow, she is eventually killed when Roshu makes her exit. First having its tongue sliced clean off, and second having been stabbed through the chest. Though this memory is lost to Roshu and lets Arya slip cleanly into her grandmother's shoes later on. That said, everything she says about fetters and binds rings a little too true for Roshu. Perhaps she wished for all of this to happen in the end. Then comes Arya, the inherited Dihui Star. 10 feet of blue, original fate in the water margin, dead. You get the idea. She just picked up the title, so that last part hardly counts. Regardless, Arya is Roshu's adopted daughter, being bioengineered in a fun laboratory to take on her traits. Her original purpose was to wield the Arayashiki, much like her adopted mother. Anyhow, like said mother, she has quite the role to play, and I'd just be rehashing much of Kanto 9 here, so I'll be brief. She becomes an emotional anchor for Roshu after she takes her home from the laboratory of the Thumb. The girl is raised in the House of Spiders alongside, wherein they play at family for a time. She rubs off on Roshu quite a few things, including her use and abuse of sangria, as well as some words and impressions she can't let go of. Echoes, so to speak. Anyhow, as things go from logical extreme to another, Roshu gets Arya to stay in a time vault while she wreaks havoc on the House of Spiders, promising to get back to her. The vault, though, is rather indiscriminate about time and causes quantum entanglement to overtake the girl, aging her up exceedingly fast. By the time she breaks out, she is old and more closely resembles her grandmother. Therein offered the position of Di Hui Star by Rian, due to a variety of factors. He takes on the mantle of the role and proceeds to antagonize Roshu throughout the course of Canto 9. First in the Golden Bow Chambers, then at a certain elevator with Sora, finally within the House of Spiders and atop of it. When all is said and done, she gets stabbed through the chest by Roshu. She unveils herself to her mother and they get to fight once again, ultimately resulting in her demise. Well, not quite. As Roshu breaks down and begins erasing everything in the nearby vicinity, Arya pipes up to Dante and they work out something of a solution, bringing Roshu back into the fold. Though gone in any human form, she now lives on as the Aryashki's sheaf. That about wraps up all of the notable members of the Pinky. While we could go on and speculate about all the potential members, who they may be, how they operate, etc., there's not much to go on besides the water margin itself. So unless you want me to read over 108 Chinese star names, titles, and the fates of said stars, well, I suppose that's where we'll conclude. Mind you, I would absolutely butcher all of those stars, and the one next to me would absolutely want to kill me. Regardless, thanks for listening in. I've already asked for the YouTube pleasantries earlier, so I'll refrain from repeating those. Instead, I'll plug the Discord here and other means of support. The community Discord has become quite lively recently, especially with the reveal of my TTRPG and the Project Moon content modifications added to it. Join up if you'd like a chance at participating in a one-shot for the system towards the end of the month. As for the Patreon and Ko-Fi, you can find links for them below, and support for as little as $1 a month, to be like these two, Artie and Derp. The Ko-Fi is more specifically for the TTRPG. Thanks once again for using me as second monitor content. Appreciate it.